Welcome to the shed. Welcome to another mind-blowing episode of In the Shed with Ryan. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Darren Le Baron, who is a mycologist and a permaculture teacher, known around the world for his shroom shop masterclasses with over 10 years experience in growing medicinal and gourmet mushrooms. So welcome to the shed, Darren.
Invitation, mate.
No worries. Let me just bring this a little bit closer to you.
Cool.
That's it, good. So my first question really is, what is your earliest memory of when your connection to mushrooms and the world of growing and medicinal purposes first? Like, when did that start for you on this journey?
So if I'll be honest and I go back, I think my real connection with mushrooms came when I was in my early teens at the latest. And I was probably 11, 12, 13 years old, around that period of time. And that's when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out.
Yeah.
And we all got the pizza bug. And I remember my favourite pizza topping was mushrooms.
Yeah.
So the mushrooms later on down the line have showed me my connection and relationship to them. And that was a key part, because that was like the martial arts, the ninjas, the pizzas, mushrooms. And that's when I first really got into mushrooms, because people didn't like mushrooms on pizzas. And I also like pineapple on pizzas as well. And they were just like, pineapple mushrooms on pizzas. It was like a weird thing for most people at the time anyway. But I was like an advocate for mushroom and pineapple pizzas, still to this day. And that was when I really started appreciating mushrooms.
So it started with like a love of food, love of pizza, and a love of turtles.
Yeah.
And where did it lead from there? I mean, was it always sort of food that led you? Was it food first that made you want to get into the world of cooking, or mushrooms itself?
So it's like a double-sided journey. So one, there's just the food. It started with the food from a younger age, and wanting to eat good later on down the line, and then I eventually had a family, so that's a fast track. And I wanted to feed my family. I wanted to grow food for my family. So there was all of those experiences coming in, and it just like for me to be able to feed the family the correct food that I wanted to. I had to dive deeper into like learning and studying. I thought I could just go out in the garden and throw a few seeds out and stuff would grow.
You probably got that impression from what I've done.
That's a good start. It's better than how I started.
Yeah.
I remember I thought like, I'm going to need to go and study this stuff, man. I'm going to go and study it. And when I thought studying at first, I actually just went to do some volunteering at a local, community growing project.
Yeah.
And I just basically come back from Barbados. That's like where my family's from, where my heritage lies. And like that experience also just gave me the bug, because everybody in my family, from the smallest members right through to the elders, all knew about food growing and like where food comes from and the role food plays, not just as a food to consume and eat, but as far as like community, man, and just keeping the community together. It was like true currency. Yeah, it's like I saw currency and community through food in a way that I'd never experienced before. So then that's when I came back, was like, look, we had a garden for the first time. I'm like, I'm going to grow food for us. Thought I could throw some seeds in the ground, tried a few things. Then thought, let me go. At Synchronicity had it that at our local market, there was a farmer's market, and there was an organisation up there that had, an open day coming up. So I got invited down to the open day. And after going there, I just got this kind of, there's just this thing happened in it where I got there and I was like, wow, this like reminds me of Barbados, although I was in Chingford, East London, North East London, but just seeing people working the land and the community vibes and spirit that was there through food again. And I was like, I want in on this. So I just started volunteering there, and then the volunteering led to me actually studying, and I went back and studied in my adulthood, went and done a level 1, then I went and done my level 2, started studying permaculture and all these things there, because I had an interest in it from childhood, but it became less cool to be interested in it. As you get older, I was more interested in football, partying, girls, all that type of stuff. So I basically came full circle to study it again. And then when I'm studying horticulture, organic food growing, my two favorite units were composting and soil science. And I love those units. But I found out the magic behind composting and the magic behind soil was this thing called mycelium that we wasn't talking about in the session. Like, it came up, but it wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
But as I'm learning more about it, I'm like, well, this is actually the thing. This is the thing, isn't it? This is like the thing that I should be studying and learning about more. And it had also come up in my, my spiritual development journey. So, that was like me just wanting to eat good and feed my family. But then as I delved more into learning about, the roles that, getting into altered states of consciousness played in spiritual development, from indigenous groups right to the here and now, I was like, these psychedelics and mushrooms were part of that psychedelic community of, stimulants that were coming up to, and, inspire people to become a better version of themselves, become more spiritual, communicate with God, all of these kind of things I was, into. So it was like the food growing path and my spiritual path, that both mushrooms were the things. I'd like, I might as well just spend more time and focus on these mushrooms and fungi, mycelium, and that's how that's when I started to take it really seriously.
Yeah. It's great that I think you started on both sides. What the actual material is, and where it comes from, and what it does for the soil and everything else. Because there is the world of like tripping, and then the knowledge of what the actual plant is itself in some people isn't always there. So what sort of led you into creating something like the Shroom Shop? Like, coming from a world of, was it like, I've got all this knowledge now, I need somewhere to put it?
Okay, so one, I have to give a shout out to the OG Baba Kalindi, who was like a mentor, teacher, friend, brother, just on this journey, on this path that I was on. So when it came to, I was growing my own food, growing food. But when it came to growing, like the mushrooms and the fungi, at that time, we wasn't covering that in any of the stuff that I was studying, at college, basically. And I was kind of self-studying and learning it. And when I picked up the first few books and bits and pieces in learning how to cultivate, I found it pretty challenging. And although I came from a food growing background, when I say challenging, meaning like, I was learning these, these new processes, but for the most part, it seemed like I needed a science lab. It seemed like I needed quite a big budget. There's like barriers to me learning. Is that
because the knowledge isn't, or the information isn't easy to find, or is it just it's actually really complicated?
It's easy to find, and it's not as complicated as some. And that was, this was the inspiration for me, wanting just like, okay, so like maybe just the initial authors that I was introduced to, just the way they worded it. You had these big, thick, books that were basically like, shit, I gotta read all this just to grow mushrooms, because I didn't have to do all that to grow the strawberries. Those are to grow.
Is it unaudible?
Basically. And I'm like, all the resources, I need this big budget, I need a science lab. Like, I just felt there was kind of like barriers to, accessing the information and let alone applying it. And then during that period of time, I was in contact with Kalindi, who was like also a grassroots, a mycologist, as we would say, independent citizen researcher.
He does a lot of workshops as well, from what I've seen as well.
Yeah, he had been, So that's, what I was getting plugged into, where I was learning a lot about, the entheogenic side of mushrooms. And I had invited him to London because I met up with him in 2011 at the Breaking Convention to do some work. So I was familiar with his work from years before that, but it was like the first time he was actually coming to the UK to teach about psychedelics,
of course,
stuff like that. He had previously been teaching about martial arts, so that's what he's, a martial artist. So this was the first time in 2011 he was talking about mushrooms and stuff, and that was in Canterbury at the time. And then I was an event, I still am an event organizer, so I was like, look, you're coming to Canterbury, or coming to the UK, you're coming to Canterbury, we can do some stuff in London, because that's my territory, and I'm used to putting on events, and I've got a community that I think would be interested. And then with that said, he stayed at my house for like a week or so, and during that time he taught me how to grow mushrooms. I was like, this is a walk in the park. I'm like, the way that he shared it with me, simplified it, broke it down, just made it really accessible. It was like, let's just
hands-on. I bet you're very, like, that's the way of learning for you.
Totally. And I love a book. I'm a book nerd, man. You can come to my house, I love reading and stuff, but it was just like the way that the knowledge was being presented in the books, it just wasn't.
It's very hard to learn in that way, I find. If someone just shows me, this is what you do and this is how, and then you go, okay, then you can reflect to the book.
And then a lot of the things that was being suggested in the books that I needed, like I said, I felt like I needed a science lab, and a lot of the names, I've never heard of these things before. You go online to find them. Like, most of these authors were Americans, so it was like you couldn't get them in the UK, you know, like this is just things like that. So when he come, he just like open my cupboard in the kitchen, like, yeah, you can use that. I'm like, there you go. And that just opened that up. And for a few years I was doing some stuff with Kalindi, you know, just like hosting based. I was just hosting, doing the workshops. Yeah. But then he would be, you know, he was coming from Detroit, so he'd be here for a few weeks. We'll do a couple of workshops, then he'll go back, and then there'll be more people just saying, yo, we want to learn how to grow mushrooms. When's Kalindi coming back? And then I was getting him back even more often. He was coming like 3-4 times a year in some cases. Then eventually he just was like, yo man, you might as well like teach the people how to grow. So I just kind of supported him on one of the workshops. It went really well. People was like, yo, you actually like made it even easier because you know the London, you're from the UK.
you know the London.
You know, like, you can give us the UK references. When you're reading all the American ones, they're talking about cups and you know, like different measurements.
Yeah,
you know, it's just
I can imagine that could
it's
be
just
tricky.
different. Yeah, it's just different. So I was able to do all the translations and make it applicable. And London has got it, and then you know it started from there. And next year, when I was being invited to Bristol, Brighton, and other places, and that's how it became a thing, man.
And now you've taken it. I mean, we last spoke. Well, we didn't last speak, but we did try to do a pod while you was in Mexico. What's it like doing it in Mexico? I can imagine people are a lot more not open-minded, but a lot more. It's a cultural thing there in a sense. You know, you have peyote as well, don't you? I think that's legal if it's in a traditional purpose. If I'm right in saying that. Yeah. So what's the difference of, you know, do you feel you can do that for like 6 months in Mexico over there quite easy?
In all honesty, man, I wasn't in Mexico doing that, man. I was on my own personal travels.
Oh, right, okay.
I ended up doing a pop-up workshop because my first time in Mexico, in between that, I spent quite a bit of time in the States, and I met somebody in the States who then relocated to Mexico. And then, you know, that was like a year later. And then they're like, yo, I'm working with the community here. Would you join me for one of my pop-up sessions? And I was like, all right, cool. So
that's what I must have saw then. And
and I was like, I tell him like, this is your gig, mate. I'm just like, I'm coming to your workshop, you know. So I actually wasn't doing that out in Mexico. Mexico was literally me like connecting with Mexico, doing my research. You know, I was going out to some of the ancient sites and just doing my independent studies. But with that said, I still understand that there is a community out there. And there was, you know, for the most part, if I'll be really honest about it, most of the people that I engaged with in Mexico, you know, for the most part, were not from Mexico. Like that's like one of the sad things about what, you know, the psychedelic community, should I say? Like, I engaged with loads of Mexican people, and you know, loads of people. I was in Oaxaca and all of that there. But you know, when we're talking about this psychedelic space and the Renaissance, as some refer to it, like was saturated by Americans, Canadians, and Europeans. You know, that's who are talking about it and making it happen. That's why I took most of my time not to be around that crowd, and go and spend time with like with real people. I consider the real people of the land, and they ain't got the same buzz around it as we may have now, because it's just a way of life for them. It's just what it is. It's what it has been for generations, and it's not like this new this
new craze.
Basically. So, for me, that's where I wanted to be, and that's where I enjoyed spending most of my time.
So what is it you was researching there, sort of studies, or where does your research take you? Is it sort of, I know you're interested in the ancient side. Is it that you were looking into in
Pretty
Mexico?
Much, so before psychedelics, I've always just been interested in like ancient history and cultures and stuff like that.
I love it.
So, you know, I was introduced to them, you know, through books. So this is what I'm saying. I was interested in, I don't know how long-winded it will be, but an interest in synchronicity, because when I actually got to Mexico to do this voyage, I was like, all right, I've definitely got to go here, definitely got to go there, and I definitely got to go there. There's places that I need to go. One of those places was Veracruz, where you find the large Olmec heads. So the Olmecs are like the mother civilization of the Americas. It's the first identified civilization to be identified in the States, or not just the States, because the Americas. Right, United Snakes of America. It definitely is. But I wanted to, so there's certain places that I wanted to check out, and I basically got to, so when I left the UK, the reason why I got to Mexico is because it was the only place pretty much close to where I need to get to that had open access. You didn't need to have anything to get in there, basically outside of your passport, where there was other places saying you needed vaccinations, you needed that. You didn't need any of that to get into Mexico, so I didn't want to have any of that stuff, so that was the place to go to. And as long as you spent,
I think everyone had that idea as well, didn't they? I saw a lot.
And the plan was, as long as you spent 2 weeks out of the UK, because the UK was like the danger space at the time. If you had been anywhere else for 2 weeks, then you could get access to other places in the world. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to Mexico for at least 2 weeks. And then during that 2 weeks, I'm going to tick all those boxes, man. I've got to see these Olmec hairs, you know, that I've been looking in books since I was a teen, man. Since I was a teenager, I've been looking at this stuff. It was my first time going to Mexico. So when I got over there, though, although they had, you know, it was kind of open space, and you know, people were out and about. When I was getting to these to the museums, like all the museums were closed.
Oh shit!
So I ended up getting there, and they're like, "Yo, man, all the museums are closed." Like, and I actually left Cancun and jumped on a plane to get to Villahermosa. Yeah. And I was like a couple hours on a plane to get there. Got off the plane, I said, yeah, take me to the museum. The guy says, what are you talking about? The museums are closed. You know, they're closed. I'm like, what do you mean? I just spent how much quids and time getting there to get to
like a day.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like going to another, Mexico's large, man. So it's like going to another country. And basically, I got there. He said, yeah, the museum's closed. I said, well, I might as well just go there anyway. I'm here now. And he says, you can see some stuff from outside. Yeah. Said, that's better than nothing. And I actually went there, spent some time outside. But when I got there was some vendors who had their stalls out and about. And I said to the guy, you know, like, I've come here to see, you know, the Olmec heads. He goes, yeah, if you just look through the gate, you can see one at the back there. And, or even before that, should I say, I goes like, because no one was speaking English. So I was like, does anyone speak English? Can I speak to anyone who speaks English? Because it was like, it's closed. And they eventually found this guy who spoke English. And he was the one who said, yeah, you can see some through the gates and stuff like that. And then he goes, oh, like, what are you here for? I said, yeah, I'm here to see the Olmec heads and stuff. I goes, like, where's the other ones? Like, where's the ones that are not in the museum, like in the out and open? He goes, oh, nah, man, they're like miles away from it. Oh, my God. There goes, like, yeah, that's like a half a day's drive to get there. Yeah. So I said to him, I goes, like, well, what are you doing? Yeah. And he goes, yeah, I'm just setting up my stall. And I was like, I've come so far, you know, and I was like, whatever. I goes, what would you earn today on your table? Man? Like, I'll be prepared to give you that so we could go to these Olmec cares, because, like, I've left my country to come here to see this, like, whatever it takes to do it. And then ironically, he goes, oh, you seem really passionate about, you know, being in, you know, going to see these stoneheads. He goes, let me show you something. And he pulled out a book, and he opened a book, and he goes, my teacher took these other black men. So there was these African Americans who had came there years before. And when he opened it, I goes, those are my teachers, man. These are the guys whose books I've been reading over the years. So he goes, yeah, I've got to introduce you to my teacher, and yeah, we're going to take you around. So it was just like synchronicity had it, that he packed up his bag, his stall, put it in the car, and we ended up rolling for about 3-4 days. So that's why I was in Mexico.
I think synchronicity is the word there. It's like, it definitely, when you're on the right path, these things just show up. You know, in such a way that it's just like, okay, that you know, the museum's closed, but you find someone who pulls out a book that you've been looking at for years. You know what I mean? It's great. So did you get to see them? Like, you got?
Man, what was wicked? What were the books? So you got me excited, because now when we was going to these places, and it came like I had the red carpet treatment, because all the security, they had like security there, and security looking at us from a distance, and they're like, you know, I didn't understand at the time. He translating. He was like, nobody's been here in 2 years since the pandemic. He goes, He goes, you're the first person like, in 2 years. So, and then when I was getting to these places, it was just me. It was just me and my homie who was taking me around. And all these ancient sites. I just had the spaces to myself. Every now and then there'd be a cat, a bird, you know, some wildlife that would join us. But other than that, I was at all of these ancient sites by myself, just spending quality time. It felt like, synchronicity had it, that like it was meant to be this way, man. So I felt blessed in, you know, going to see all them spaces and places, and not having all the masses there, you know, loads of people, loads of footfall, kind of the hustle and bustle, which he said it would usually be.
Yeah, that's the best way, really, with no one around, isn't it? You can just take it in.
There was no one around. There was no one around.
Yeah, that's great. Have you been to like sort of Egypt and things like that? Look through like there, you know, because there are mushrooms on sort of templates and things like that I've seen as well. Have you delved into the ancient world of that?
Most definitely.
Because I find a lot of that history is hard to find in the way that it's been presented.
Yeah, definitely, because like Kalindi would say, it's just hidden in plain sight. Like you need to know the codes. You know, in most cases, if you're coming from that culture, you would need to have been initiated to really know and understand. And, you know, us from the outside looking in and just trying to grasp it from a book is not necessarily the best way that you're going to
learn these
and
things.
process,
Yeah.
process what it's all about. But with that said, a combination of reading the books, watching the documentaries, going there, having some amazing wise teachers that I've been able to break bread with, I've been able to get certain insights, and that's what I teach and share about. So I had the opportunity to go there, check out the temples, check out the pyramids, check out all the places where it's been suggested that they would have been partaking in mushrooms. There's evidence that suggests that is the case, and there's mushroom glyphs that you find on the wall, as well as other sacred plant technologies that the ancient Egyptians were dealing with.
Through your research, where do you think sort of the separation kind of happened? Because if you look at the Western world, we're completely separate from most of this history and our understanding of what mushrooms are doing. I feel lockdown in one way did, cause a lot of problems to a lot of people, but I found a lot of people went into themselves and researched a lot of this, and the sort of mushroom world has come back up, or that they can help with depression and stuff like this. But through your research, through civilizations, and where do you think it kind of changed or went down a different path where we separated ourselves?
So it's not one particular thing, it's like a series of events that have taken place over the years. That,
not like day one. No.
And if we start in the present and we'll kind of work our way backwards, the government, politics, religion, all these players have had their hands in, creating a narrative that makes us look at these things as not positive, as something negative, whether that's because they were illegal, and they're bad and they're a drug, that's kind of like the modern narrative. And then, even the religious perspective, that they were evil, and that's kind of like dealing with these technologies or, black magic and witchcraft. And that's why in this part of the world, even before we go to Egypt, because, before I got to Egypt, I was doing this type of research, and I'm born and bred here, conceived in the UK, so like I'm interested in what's going on here and the ancient legacies, and I'm always trying to remind people through my work as well that I might promote and advocate for indigenous African and the diasporas, knowledge and information to be out there. It's also combines or connected to the fact that like that information is here too, like in the UK. So before I went to Egypt, I went to Cornwall. Before I went to Egypt, I was in Wales, I was in Scotland, I was in Ireland, because in all of these places, there is a rich wealth of information that deals with the same type of knowledge and information that we're all interested in. Like everyone seems to think it's, pretty much Central America, Central or South America. That's like the hub for all of this information, the Amazon, so people, it appears looks like the grass is greener, but everything you need is on your doorstep. So with that said, the reason why we might not find it so much here in the UK, in Europe, is because, according to history, or at least not what I'm saying, history suggests that, the church killed off the witches and stuff, man. They got rid of the people who were dealing with this type of stuff, and then they had to go underground. So they didn't wipe it out. It's not totally wiped out. It's just gone underground. And that's what's happened in most places. Like as the powers that be came into their solar consciousness, because that's what it basically is. It's like solar consciousness, the solar gods, the God. So prior to that, there was the matriarchal. So we moved into this patriarchal thing, and that's when the rules changed. You know what I'm saying? So prior to that, everyone in the world was dealing with these technologies, and there's a consciousness that's gone around the world. Like as the sun moves, or as we move around the sun, we've evolved, our consciousness has evolved, and that's what happens according to the studies that I've seen and what I've checked out. So that's what's happened here in the UK, that's what's happened in Egypt, that's what's happened amongst the earliest people that you find pretty much on all the continents. They were dealing with certain technologies. As the consciousness moved into the solar patriarchal side of things, some kept more of a balance, but then there were some enforcers over the years that have come in and says, nah, we're wiping that out. And that's pretty much the religions and the governments of the world today.
I definitely think it has a really big connection with consciousness and a leap in consciousness when you see, like the 60s, in the sense when, everyone was doing it, then war becomes this thing that people get more involved in and tell them it's bad rather than just watching it on telly and turning it off. It becomes more of a, we have to do something about it, I find. And I think that did happen through COVID as well. A lot of people, I think, were doing shroom oil at home and then started questioning their reality. But I think the relationship with it as well, with, you're saying religious and religious and government, it is, the more it's legalized, I think it will be legalized in a sense of where it's controlled. Like now I'm seeing, therapy sessions where they have maybe 5 milligrams and it's working on people that were on antidepressants and that. But I think it's going to take a very long time for that to be pushed through. I'm not sure if you know more, but I think to give it out as like, oh, okay, everyone can do it. You know, I think in London, that's a very long way away because of the way people start acting and start thinking about the society they're in.
Yeah. I think that's why, you know, according to what the research says again, that's, you know, the organic research that's why, you know, it was prevented in the first place, because we need people to go to war. And you're taking this technology and you don't want to go to war. You want it's like it contradicts.
Want to be friends with everyone.
Yeah. So like these are some of the reasons why, you know, it wasn't complementary to, you know, just the agendas at that time. And the point that you're making as far as, you know, like the legalization. That's why it's important, like even these terminologies, because like, yeah, again, but yeah, the legalization, it's like, who is it going to be legal for?
Yeah.
Who's going to be able to get access to this stuff? You know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
These are the questions that I was asking from day one, you know, like, because it just didn't, like, just doesn't make sense, because my thing is like, if you give this to the masses, you know, this is what they've been trying to prevent for decades now, you know, and, you know, since the 60s, as we're aware, and even before, because again, the 60s wasn't the first, but, you know, since then they've been trying to, you know, make sure people don't get access. Like, I can't see them all of a sudden turning over a new leaf and saying, yeah, you know, the masses get it. So it's going to be in controlled circumstances, and we've already seen the templates that already exist for this, and it's basically going to need to have a budget.
Yeah.
You're going to need to have a budget. And if you don't have, you know, £7,000, £10,000, you know, budget to be going on one of these therapeutic, you know, centres or retreats, things like that, then again, you're not going to be able to get access to this type of stuff. So again, it's just questioning, you know, who is it legal for? That's why in, you know, the States in particular, where they've been leading a lot with this stuff here, you've got the whole decrim movement, where they're talking about it's not even about it being legal, it's about it being decriminalised. So people caught in possession of it don't end up in jail and, you know, having these stigmas associated with it, where they can't get a job when they're trying to sort out their healing because they can't afford £7,000 or £10,000 to go on one of these
retreats,
centres, retreats and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just kind of like moving and grooving around, and just, as I say to people, like getting where you fit. So if you've got £7,000 to go on one of these retreats, to go to Costa Rica, like, go for it, innit? If that's your your way in. And if you need to be someone in your shed growing, you know, like, you know, just know that if you're breaking the law, you're breaking, like, what you know, just be like responsible, and you know, just know what you're doing, man. And I don't advocate for anyone to break the law, but like, I totally get, you know, people need, you know, like, very challenging circumstances. So if the research is suggesting, it can help people with their depression, their PTSD, and there's someone who's struggling with depression and PTSD and doesn't have £7,000, but has seen a way out, a tangible way out through this, like, what do you tell them? You know? So like, that's the situation we're going to be over the years, and I think it would take a long time before the government says, okay, mate, you can grow in your shed, and you can. So it's like, that's just where we're at the moment.
Is Colorado legal now?
I don't know if Colorado. I know Denver. That's in Colorado.
Yeah, it's Denver, isn't it? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. America's just really confusing when it comes to, because every city, every state, it's just all different. The laws, just what age you can drink alcohol, what age you smoke. So everything's just different. That's what I found. I spent nearly 9 months, you know, back and forth in the States, and every place that I went to. So Denver, it's been decriminalized. Oakland, it's been decriminalized. So those are like cities within the States. And I know that Oregon is the only state, I believe, if I'm correct, that has decriminalized and legalized, like, as a state. But then if you go to Oakland, if you go to, you know, Denver and the places where it's been decriminalized, and you ask people, so what's the status? Most people, the everyday people, don't really know. Like, I'm like, can you grow mushrooms? Like, how much mushrooms can you have on you? Possession? It's like, it's all new, it's all fresh still. So there's still like the missing gap in all of this, wherever I've gone around the world, where it's Mexico, Jamaica, Africa, Egypt, you name it, is education.
Yeah, of course.
That's why I do what I do, because like, even though people are like, yeah, man, we need mushrooms, it's like, people are just not educated about this stuff. Like, you know, just as far as, like, I always say, people want to get into mushrooms, but they don't know that mushrooms play a role in soil, you know, like creating soil. Like, really get to know what you're getting into, you know, before you get into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like, for me, the missing gap is education. Once people know the role, are more educated about it, like, they'll get it. Because I teach people how to grow mushrooms in schools. And the first thing that I'm asked is like, oh, you're teaching kids how to grow magic mushrooms? Like, no. like not in school. Like, what do you like? Come on, be serious. You know what I'm saying? Of course not.
Yeah.
You know, it's illegal, isn't it? But, you know, mushrooms play a bigger part, you know, than just being entheogenic or psychedelic mushrooms. And, you know, that's the key. That's what gave me my spark in learning the role outside of that it played. That made me want to learn more, you know, and build this relationship with this organism. So I'm just saying that to say that education plays a big part. That's the missing link. That's the gap. And once we start plugging that gap, I think then we can make more wise decisions about how we can move this thing forward.
Yeah.
In America, what I did see, my mind was just like it's very competitive. You know, like, you know, Americans full stop, like, very competitive. Like, and I love all that. Like, I like that. I'm not saying it's negative, but then they're bringing it into a space where I'm not sure if that competitiveness is needed, because they want to be first to have, you know, the microdosing products and packaging.
You nearly went American accent there.
I got the bug after a while. I was all saying all the words wrong. Tomato. When I came back, I had to like readjust. But just with that said, like, just a lot of people who have the finances, I'm just saying to say that have jumped into this space and pushing it, and I realised like they haven't really got a clue, because I know that I haven't got a clue. And they definitely haven't got a clue, because they're new. They just got money that they've been able to pump into it and push it forward. And, you know, you've got it's a lot of, like, what they say, like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, of course.
Kind of thing. So, and
it's not really something, I mean, tripping itself, or, you know, the other side you're talking about, the benefit, like lion's mane's good for sleep and things like that educational side, people don't know a lot of how many different types of mushrooms there are, just for concentration, focus, sleeping well, appetite, digestive system. There's loads to it.
That's why schools are interested. Kids are overweight, they're obese. You know, that's what's happening, you know.
School meals aren't anything to shout about.
School is all about remembering. You know, if we know about education, you don't need to be like smart to be. You need to have a good memory. Lion's manes. That's what I told the kids. That's why I'm in the schools. I'm like, yo, all you got to do is have a good memory in school. You're going to do all right. You know, this lion's mane mushroom is going to helps you build like your brain. You want to grow your brain? And they're like, so that's why I'm in schools, and that's why schools are saying, we need to bring this type of stuff into schools. And then I find out that their parents think it sounds silly and ridiculous. And I'm like, that's why you guys need to go home and teach your parents, because us adults weren't taught this stuff. We haven't got a clue. So that's why we're in schools doing this stuff.
I think that's so good. I think with everything, education is first, and obviously going into schools is great, because as well, kids will just spread it like wildfire as well, information, because they have no filter.
Totally. So when it's funny, because when I do my first session in schools, I'm about to go back in next week and do that for the new term. And then like the first session I do with them is how to grow an alien. Because a lot of times I've been doing, you know, teaching young people. Before mushrooms, it was just like food growing. I was in schools teaching organic food growing and food enterprise. And not for the most part, I was teaching like the 13 to 16-year-olds, and they're not interested in gardening and food growing. Like, it's boring. It's BS. Like, you're doing that, sir, because you failed in life. You didn't know how to hustle, so that's why you just got into the food game, like selling food basically, or teaching people how to grow food. So when I used to go into schools, I was like, don't tell them the gardener's coming. Like, that's not going to be engaging. We need to have a whole, like, so I've got a different angle. When I go into that first session with the students, like, they're like, oh, we're doing gardening. I'm like, no, we're not. We're growing aliens. You know, and like, huh?
That's such a good take, though.
Oh yeah, totally. I get it now. Like, because they're the ones who have actually trained me and prepared me for the role and the tasks that are
of course.
Like, because they were not engaging, and they're the ones who would throw tomatoes. Like, I was working with not just the standard school children. I was working with the kids who were in pupil referral units. Kicked out of school, just come out of prison.
They're in the middle, like
the real challenging students. So the hard to reach, they refer to them. So they tell you how it is, my man. Like, they're like, this is BS. I don't want to be in this class. They flip tables and all that type of stuff. Those are the kids that I'm working with. So I knew that I couldn't go in there saying, we're going to be doing gardening today. You know, when I was doing the food growing stuff with them, it was like, I'm going to teach you guys how to set up your own business. Like, we're going to make money. That would engage them. Like, why are you guys in there? Because most of you got in trouble because you're trying to make money. So I'm going to show you how to make money through food. But before we make the money through the food, you got to know about these seeds and how to put them in the ground and how to grow them. And there's a process. And the same goes with the mushrooms. That kids are like, what about mushrooms? Like, well, there's certain mushrooms that are more valuable than things that you're trying to sell that are illegal. You know what I'm saying? And we've got legal things that we can grow, that we can take anywhere in the world and benefit from, and your parents be proud, teachers be proud, the police ain't going to be after you, and like all of those benefits. So that's how I do that kind of engagement and educating young people with it all.
So You're just telling them they're aliens in a sense, but you're growing obviously mushrooms in how they look.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I give them the essence that mushrooms are aliens because the origins of mushrooms are not from Earth.
Yeah, of
they're
course.
extraterrestrial. They came from another place in space. That's what science. Like, I'll give them the mythology. My version, my rendition of it, and then we break it down scientifically and look at the terms like panspermia. The asteroids and the meteorites that brought these ingredients, these key ingredients that kickstarted life on Earth, and one of those were mushroom spores.
Yeah,
and that started to to break down the bedrock, which then gave us our first layers of soil, which allowed the first plants to evolve like 500 million years later. And I just teach them that all of this stuff comes from mushrooms. Mushrooms are aliens, and so when they're growing their liquid culture, that starts off as just this, water with honey, basically. And then over the weeks, they start seeing this thing form inside there, which grows, and you break it up and it forms back. And it's like, they know that they're growing an alien, man. After that, they get it. They go home and tell their parents, Mum, I'm growing an alien. And their parents are like, what are you talking about?
What are you learning at school these days?
So that's how it goes.
So I've seen on your Instagram as well, I think it's even a merch thing you sell, but a quote that you've done is that you're a mushroom having a human experience.
Yeah, there you go.
So do you think through the evolution that obviously mushrooms, I think they're so intelligent, but do you think that they took into a human form, or their consciousness went that way? How do you think that happened? This is a far out there question, but still.
I think it plays like it's mind, body, and soul, man. It's physical and it's metaphysical, in practice. So like let's bring the physical, tangible stuff. Like, why do I say we are mushrooms having a human experience? Well, I'll just explain that the mushroom spores came from beyond our solar system, and have basically broken down the bedrock. That's the minerals, the fundamental foundations of Earth, which became soil, which then became the plants and all the things that are connected to that. So we say things like, we come from the soil, we go back to the soil, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. All of our physical is made from the soil. All the life, plants, all these things come from the soil. Mushrooms created the soil. They're the creators. And we come from that. They facilitate, hold space, and make all of that happen. Without mushrooms, everything goes. Like, that's just the reality of it. Now, if we're saying we're made up of this same material that we find in the soil, then we look at our system, and we could look at, for example, the central nervous system. And if we compare that to how mycelium, if we compare it to how mycelium works in the soil and throughout the body, how it sends information and all the rest of it, it's the same stuff, man. It's the same in principle, because I know like scientifically we can't go there, but in principle it's the same thing. And like you said, you look at the central nervous system and you get right to the cap. There you go. And then we sporulate and we got all these ideas. So there's a real scientific, physical aspect to it where we come from the soil. We're made up from that material. There's, these principles that mushrooms teach and guide in the way that and affect us and impact us. The soil in the same way that they do the human body and life on planet Earth. The way that we communicate. Like now we're dependent upon like technology to communicate, but there's times when we didn't depend on those synthetic technology. We were utilizing organic technologies like the birds do and the spiders do and all other animals do. So what technology is that enables them to do that? What makes the trees communicate? What you're going to find out that this mycelium plays a very important part in making that thing work. So why would it not be the thing or the technology that we would be working with? Because that's what the ancient people say. That we're related, but it's only now that it just seems really kind of far-fetched. So with that said, you also look at the role that, as far as, the enlightenment of man. Some people may have heard of the Stoned Ape theory, hypothesis, and just
Dennis McKenna,
Terence and Dennis, and and others, Paul Stamets, validates this type of stuff just as far as the growing of the brain, like the evolution. So we're looking at creation as well as evolution. That mushrooms play like are the main players behind either theory that you go with. Like they're there and about, and they're part of in heightening our senses and getting us to a point and place as humans, evolve. In the evolution side of things to where we've become who we've become today. And some would say that our decline, because according to most indigenous cultures, we're actually on a decline. We in this part of the world say we're evolving, and they're saying we've already done that, and we're on this side of the spectrum. We're on our way down, and that's why we're falling, and we're in this side, and that's why we're becoming more dependent on these physical hard materials when before it was more intuitive. It was telepathic. It was those kind of technologies terminologies that are, you know, we would say is mumbo jumbo now. But these indigenous cultures, that's what they deal with. That's like how they live life.
Yeah,
and they
of
do
course.
it very well with nature, not destroying it, because they say they've already done this. They've done a lot of destruction to build what they built in the past, these major civilizations of old. But because they realized they had to destroy so much, this time around they decided to live a more simple life. And it suggested that it's just the younger children now, like the new wave of humans, that are trying to do the same things, of build these big things and these, you know, amazing looking things. But in actuality, it's like,
not needed.
Yeah. It's like, it's BS in it. It's all hype. It's all ego and all these things.
Yeah.
And maybe because we haven't had the mushrooms and the ayahuasca and all these things present, that would, I don't want to say kill the ego, you know, but just put it into perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Understand how to watch it rather than live in it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. You know, it's just like disciplining that unruly child that wants to, you know, just run around and build and destroy and do it all. It's like, oh, we've been there and done that. Let me, as an older brother or an older sister, let me show you how you should behave in the house, you know, of Earth. Like,
for
you'll
sure.
You'll get a lot further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, what interests me is like the way you talk about, you know, intuition, and it's like the technology now. I mean, Alan Watts says a few things around this, and he said it about 40, 50 years ago, that, you know, we're moving into a world where the technology is outside of us, when really it's all already inside of us. Yeah. You know, telepathy is something I've been seeing springing up, and I see in older videos people doing it and things like that. And it is put in a box of, well, that's stupid, that's not possible, you know what I mean? Yeah. Even I've got a hypnosis coming on the show soon.
Okay.
And even that, some people are like, that's bollocks. Yeah. It's like, it's not. It's your internal monologue, and all someone's doing is tricking your internal monologue. Yeah. Your brain is then trusting that. To me, it's like, it can work, but it's true with the sense of mushrooms that it does. It definitely awakens all that internally, and then, you know, what are we going to use a phone for anymore? Just be like, look, I'm just chatting to my mate.
Well, it's funny because one of the inspirations for me actually stepping into the psychedelic space and partaking was a book that I was reading. Robert Anton Wilson, I think it's like Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, something like that is titled, off the top of my head. But there was that and another book, and basically they were just referencing these indigenous cultures. And there was this particular shaman who, you know, there was a Westerner who was spending some time with this indigenous group, and they had this big gathering that happens, like, let's say every 10, 20 years. I can't remember, I'm just paraphrasing, but like every 10, 20 years, a big gathering where all the different communities come together and they gather around as one. And he says he was in this community for this period of time, and the shaman from that region was saying, yo, we need to let the guys from the other village know that they need to bring the sheep with them. We need to bring the sheep. We need 10 more sheep to be brought. And the guy couldn't work out the fact that this message needed to be delivered, you know, and this next village was like 7 days away, you know, it would take 7 days to get there, and, you know, the event was happening in like 2 days. So he's like, how the hell are you going to get the message over to those guys to get it and bring it in time? It just didn't make sense. And he says, and the guy never left from underneath this tree. And that's exactly why. And that's what it goes into. He was into astral traveling, and they would just break all that type of stuff down, and they talked about the plant technologies that they utilize to be able to communicate on these levels. And this is the organic technologies that we have at our disposal if you know, we're educated about it, but we haven't been educated about it. So it's mumbo
which
jumbo.
you're trying to do, though, which is really good. Have you tried, you know, obviously not in a psychedelic state, but have you tried sort of the astral projection or meditations? Have you ever worked on that kind of world, you know, in a sober state, in a sense?
Yeah, because that's what I was into before psychedelics. I thought psychedelics were bad and wrong, and you don't deal with all that type of stuff. Like, all you need is inside of you. So all you need, everything that you need is inside of you. So prior to, you know, having my first psychedelics experiences, I was actually deep into the dream world, the dream game, you know what I'm saying? The lucid dreaming, out of body experiences, astral traveling. As I mentioned, I was an event organizer, still am. So I would invite people primarily from the States, America, authors that I've been inspired by, and invite them to the UK. Say, I've just read your book. I think it's amazing. I've learned from it. I'm applying it, practicing it. I think, again, the community could do with this information. Because before I came out in the public space and spoke, I was just always in the cut behind the scenes and I didn't want to be seen or heard. So I was just like, I know that you're you're important and people need to hear what you're saying. So like, come over, I'm gonna get the venue, promote it, get you out there. So I big him up because there was Albert Taylor. I referenced him just a couple of days ago because I had a friend who was having sleep paralysis. He's like, bro, I keep having this sleep paralysis. It's been happening recently. I think it's because I'm stressed out and all different reasons. And most again, it's like got these negative connotations. Like, bro, I says like, I clocked that game quite, in my teen, or when I was a kid, actually younger than my teens. Like when I was a kid, it used to happen like when I was really little, 5, 6, 7 years old in primary school. And I didn't get it then, but when I got into the teens and I was able to read books, that's like one of the first things I was interested in, like dreams and all that, because I just thought it was fucking amazing. Dreaming. So I was into that and interested in that. And then as I got into adulthood, like I took quality time out to study that stuff and practice it, and intentionally, and would invite people to come and share that type of information, because that's, for me, that's what it's about, man. It's all about.
What's the best way to lucid dream for anyone that wanted to? Because I mean, I do sometimes, but other times it doesn't work.
So that's what I'm saying. Like for me, that's why then psychedelics came into play, because
you're like, I need to get there.
It was like it was hit and miss. So what I discovered was this for my own personal journey. When I was younger, the child happened every night, like 5, 6, like before primary school. Like I used to have this thing where before school, I used to have this alarm. Remember those? I don't feel from that era, but those old alarms are like bring. It's actually ringing the metal.
I've actually got one like that in my room because I keep a phone downstairs. No tech in my room, but I've actually got like an old school alarm in there.
Okay,
I hate it.
Yeah, see, and so did I. Man. I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and that's what would be waking me up at bloody 6:30 in the morning every morning. And then something happened, man, like to the point where that hate or detestment for that sound or that shock of being woken up, I used to be in my dreams, and then in the dream I would be like, yo, the alarm's about to go off. Like I told whoever I'm in the dream with, I tell them, I'm about, and I don't want to, like, I just need to get prepared to be woken up by the alarm. And they would just basically wake me up just like seconds before the alarm would go off, and I would wake up and not be shocked no more. And they're like, all right, cool, man, go to school. And I'll go to school and have a good day. And I didn't know what it was, I was a kid. But it's like, then I come to, that's all like lucid dreaming and stuff. And I'm saying that to say that later on in life, when I wanted to re-engage in it, I was like, that used to happen to me when I was a kid. I'm an adult now. I'm become responsible. Got all these luggage that I carry around with me, where I'm not having those kind of lucid experiences no more. But I would like to. And I went and explored. I remember I picked up, books and these series that I was delving into. And one of the techniques that they were suggesting that would allow you to have these lucid dreams and out-of-body experiences was basically this alarm trick, where you would set your alarm for a series of times to wake you up through the early morning. And what you're doing is basically hacking. It's all like hacking. You're tricking your subconscious into preparing for an alarm that doesn't come.
Oh, okay.
And by the time you get into that state, you're in a lucid state. You're in that hypnagogic state where you're half awake, half asleep. And then you can, if you choose to,
body asleep, mind awake.
You can either wake up or you can say, okay, let's go in there. So
because that's when it kind of happens to me. It'd be where I wake up and then I fall back to sleep, or you've had a dream and then you wake up and you realize it's a dream and you're like, oh, I need to find out what's going on. And then you go back to sleep, sort of. But I have tried, there was a guy called Robert Monroe. I don't know. So I've done like the CIA tapes that they've given out. So I've been doing like, I'm only on tape 5 though, and that's been about a year. I go through to the others, but I'm like, I haven't quite got, what I get a lot of time with astral projection is like, I can feel a kind of lift. I can feel my energy. I can move it around. I can feel a kind of lift, but then it's almost like fear creeps in or reality creeps in. I realize I'm still in my body, so I can't quite get my body to sleep.
Got you.
Do you know what I should do?
What you should do is this: check out Albert Taylor's work.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's still accessible, but the series that I got that I thought like was easy and applicable was called Lucidology 101.
Yeah, okay.
Between those two, between Albert Taylor's work and Lucidology 101. So he's going back, he's going back some years ago when, so I'm not sure, it was all online. The Lucidology was online. Loads of Albert Taylor stuff was online. I bought his book. His book's called Soul Traveller. Between the book, his works, and then the Lucidology, that kind of gave me a fast track back into that space and place. And I was dealing with the Robert Monroe and the Monroe Institute's materials and stuff. That was all complimentary as well. But it's just the way that Albert Taylor narrated his stuff, literally in the books, like reading it was just easily digestible. And then the Lucidology 101, they actually had like resources for you. You could just like download the stuff, MP3 files, pull it on your phone to get those alarm regimes. And then when I got onto it, I was like, this is what was happening to me as a kid. Is that alarm? It was that same alarm. I was like, yeah. So like, I just went back into that kind of childlike space and was playing around with it. So that's what worked for me. It's not necessarily going to work for everybody. No. I've got other techniques that would say, yeah, it works. And it's like, that didn't work for me. And it's like, as I said, hit and miss.
Yeah, it's all to how you're going to work in that situation. I suppose you can relate it back to the alarm and, you know, waking up before the alarm. So I suppose I've got to try and find a way of where, like having some sort of reference to, that's where I am. I'm waking up before that. Maybe I just try and do it with the alarm I got anyway. I do find I do wake up before it most of the time because you can tell the body to wake up before it. I find before you go to sleep.
I literally used to count down, man. I don't know what was going on. I was 8. I'd be like, my alarm's about to go off. Hold on, 5, 4, 3, 2, and I'd be like, bye, I'm out of here. And then like, ring. But then I wake up, and be like, yeah, I knew you was about to ring. Like, so it was like that was the trigger in adulthood that I was thinking, I'm going to work with this.
Yeah, for sure. And do you find that understanding lucid dreaming and that kind of world helped you a lot more when you went into sort of a trip state? You know, understanding the realm that you're in, you know.
To some degree.
But then it's
like a little. It's like, to some degree, really.
10%.
Little. Like, I thought so initially, but as you dive and I got deep into it, it's like, nah, there's nothing on earth that I've ever experienced that could have ever prepared me for this stuff, you know. And there's certain things that I said that correspond like dream world. So I definitely say like dream world, meditation, getting into all states of consciousness through breath work. All these things have definitely, for me, because I was never an expert at any of those. Some people I know say, you know, I'll do meditation, I'll get into these states that mushrooms take me into. I beg to differ, in all honesty, after, you know, speaking with my teacher and elders, like, because it's all dose specific and, you know, because they've done the trials, man. I'm saying people say that, but they've done the trials with the priests, you know, with monks and Buddhists who do their work. And then when you give them a high dose psilocybin experience, they'd be like, whoa, nah, this is not what's happening to me when I'm having my meditation. If they're talking about taking a 0.5 gram, you know, like that's but if you're diving deep based on the school and education I got from Kalindi EE, it's like, there was no preparation that any dreams, any breath work, any yoga, any meditation that I've done could have ever prepared me.
Just hang on, yo.
Basically. But those are good starting places for me. I say, good. And I don't say starting places, like for me, they're all complementary. They go hand in hand. Now the dream work's going hand in hand with the psychoactives. The yoga goes hand in hand. Meditations go hand in hand. They're complementary, you know, and they're dose specific. So whether you're going from microdosing to recreational dosing or to mega macro dosing, depending on what you're trying to achieve, some of them are complementary and they go hand in hand, and some of them, as I said, it is like, as Kalindi would say, it's like until you're doing psychedelics saying you haven't lost your mind, or you're saying that you're never going to do it again, you're not doing psychedelics properly. You know, you need to be having those experiences. You're like, shit, what? I've lost my mind. It's like, now you're making progress. That was the education that I was getting, like, in a safe, responsible, safe, you know, setting. But that's, you know, that's what you're working towards. If you're just like, I'm in the room, this is really cool, isn't it? Like, nah, psychedelics got a lot more to offer than that.
Of course.
Bring a lot more than that.
The best way of tripping, I would say, is, you know, I would put a blindfold on, or dark room, or somewhere in a safe circle. Is it sort of eyes closed, that sort of trip experience that you do, or when you have, would it be that?
So again, I've had a multiple of different types of experiences, and I like different types of experiences. But you're gonna hear me keep quoting Kalindi EE, because that's who gave me the game in this space and place. And he was like, it's the journey of the alone into the alone. It's about you doing it by yourself in a space where there's no stimulants. No lights, no music, no anything, just you and you.
See what comes up.
Man. And that's the hero's journey. That's when you're taking the heroic doses. In those, you're going to your cave, you're climbing the mountain, all those metaphors and mythologies associated with you discovering, you know, self-discovery. And even the Kung Fu movies, it's all about you taking the journey by yourself. It's not a ceremonial thing. There's no bells, whistles, feathers, nothing like that. It's just you in the dark by yourself in the cave. And that cave can be your bedroom, it can be your front room, it can be your shed, you know, like wherever you create that cave, you know, you don't have to literally go to a cave, you know, but you create your cave. And then if you choose to bring stimulants, if you want music, like all those things are cool. I do all those things also, but it just depends on the kind of work I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to achieve. Depends on the set and the setting that, you know, prepare for that.
What would you say is a dose that is in mushrooms. I mean, golden teachers could be different to, you know, a Mexican batch or something like that.
There you go. See, this is why I don't believe in play that game, man. I
Yeah.
let people know that just like you're an individual,
Yeah.
like every single mushroom is an individual. There's no like, oh, just like if we went out to have a drink, we went out to eat food, like food tastes different to us.
Yeah, of
you know, you
course.
like certain foods, I don't like certain foods.
Yeah.
You like drinks, I don't like drinks.
Jack
You can
Daniels is very different to beer.
Yeah, there you go.
I
So,
don't touch it.
yeah, so this is why I say, like, you really do need, like, again, how I was taught, you need to be like an independent studier, man. Like,
Yeah,
you
test
need-
and trial, small
Yeah.
doses up to higher doses.
There
as
you
said
go.
then.
Just know that you can get golden teachers and you can stick with the same strain, but different batches, depending on what they're grown on, where they're from, all have their own unique signatures. So I'd never take it for granted, because I've taken it for granted before that, oh, I've done this before, I've done this dose before, it's going to be like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not how it turned out.
No.
And then me as an educator in this space, I've just got to let people know that that's a real thing, you know, don't take it for granted. Like, and I know people now like, yeah, man, I want something a bit more potent, I want apes, you know, I want, you know, everyone's got their, their thing. And I'm having a thing, well, if you're on golden teachers and you just don't think they're strong enough, you just take more.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's what you do. Like, and but we're in this space now where, like, everyone, it's like the cannabis game, everyone wants to have the strongest thing, or the this or the that.
Yeah.
I'm like, find your particular variety that you like and build a relationship with it.
Yeah.
So for me, for example, I started with Cambodia. The first ever ones that I grew and that I, you know, actually engaged with, and I spent quality time just working with them. And like, then I got to know what the Cambodian signature is like on that particular strain. And then when I got the Masapatek and I got the, you know, it's like just building a relationship. And then that's when I got to realize that they're all unique. No experience is the same. I don't take that for granted anymore. Like, oh, I know what's going to happen tonight because I'm taking 3 grams and I've done 10 grams before. So 3 grams is going to be a walk in the park. No, sometimes that 3 grams can also lay you on your ass. So it's all just like, I don't ever take it for granted. And that's how I kind of educate people in that space, you know, like if you've got a particular thing that you've got that you know and you think you know it, your mindset's going to play a big part. How do you feel that day? You know, because you may not feel how you felt last week or the year. I done it last year. Yeah, well, how you felt last year?
Very different person.
So how it's gonna affect you is gonna be different, and that's the game, the knowledge that I would like people to take into these spaces.
Yeah.
And then you've got to be the nerd and do your own journals, whether it's physical journaling or internal journaling, and then you kind of work it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And if there's a consistency for you and it's all rigid like that, then great. But no, mushrooms are showing me it's very much more fluid and not. It's not. I can't grasp it. Yeah, and that's what I like.
Like a fork through water.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, it's infinite in that. In that.
Yeah, I love that. It's fascinating to me as well, where you said that some people. Well, not everyone's going to have the same experience, but what do you think? I mean, a lot of people do have an acceptance of death. I think after a lot of people that are, you know, either, you know, a cancer patient, stage 4 or something like that. What do you think the relationship is that with it being out of body experience and you are more than your body? With the relationship you have to death before you've done something like a psychedelic experiment.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's too late. Because they're giving it to cancer patients, and we're finding it out in our 30s, 40s. You know, for the most part. You know, late 20s, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And really and truly, you was meant to find this out when you was a kid going through puberty. So you would have faced that death experience. You would have had that death experience, which allows you to live a more liberated life. So yeah, it does definitely do that for folks. You know, that's what they've seen with the cancer trials that they've done with those patients, that after they partook in the mushrooms, them or the individual was no longer scared of their fate, and they could reassure not them just themselves, but their family members are also scared that, you know, and worried for them. So yeah, there's a role that it plays, you know, what we're discovering now, so to speak, and individuals experience. But then if you get deep into the so-called mystery systems, you find out, well, that's what all the mystery systems are, you know, in ancient Egypt, right through to Greece, and you name it, the Roman mystery systems, the elusive mystery systems of ancient Egypt, the opening of the mouth ceremony of ancient Egypt. All of these were about the initiate having a more prosperous experience after death.
Yeah.
And how did they do that? They done that by practicing dying. It's Mario World.
Yeah.
Where you practice dying before you die. If you practice dying before you actually die, then you're gonna like be all right. That's what basically the mystery systems are basically saying. Like, I'm just paraphrasing, but it's like you're gonna be all right in life because you're gonna.
Yeah, I haven't heard of the mystery system before. I haven't heard of that terminology before.
So all cultures, even the religions have got like an esoteric and a cult, a hidden aspect to their teachings.
Yeah.
So if you're in Christianity, for example, that's how most of us, in these parts of the world, raised in the main three religions, either Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. Well, they all have their mystery systems associated with them. Christianity, if you don't know, is all to do with the Gnostics. So if you're really into Christianity and you're like, I don't want to lose my religion, don't want to give up God and Jesus, then you need to get into what the Gnostics were dealing with. And if you're into Islam, then you need to get into Sufism, the original Sufis and what they were dealing with. And if you're into Judaism, it's all the Kabbalah and the Kabbalists and all that type of, like, it's there, the information is there. And all of those things are about the other side, the shadow. Like death, basically, the dark side, which we've been given as something that is bad and negative. But I guess, again, just the studies that I've done, like suggest that the powers that be, that's where they're getting their powers from and telling us that it's bad and wrong. And they're actually found the balance, that it's that you need the light and the dark. You go into Buddhism, Chinese philosophy, like the yin and the yang. It's just basically looking at you can't have one without the other.
No.
Then when you look at the yang,
there's dark and light in both.
There you go. And like once you get that, that's what the mystery systems are about, in essence. And the ultimate mystery systems are to do with sex and death. Yeah. The life, what brings you in, what takes you out, like the biggest mysteries. Like they were interested in the same things that we're interested in today, but they took time out to really dive deep and study it, where we don't have the time because we got 9-to-5 jobs and things to do.
Distractions.
That's so they gave us alternative things to focus on while they focused on that. But whether you're in the mainstream religions or, as I said, in the ancient worlds of Greece, they called it the Eleusinian mystery systems, and that was something that you would need. Again, like it would happen once in your life. You could only do it once.
Would this be from a young age then? Or
no, so different mystery systems are slightly different. So there are some from a young age. In different cultures, because different cultures have different systems. Of course. So I'm just making reference to the Greek one because that's a popular one that people can go and do research on, and that would happen in adulthood. So there are ones that happen as
so like 1820s or
no, I think
later.
Even later. This was even later. Because it would only happen the celebration happens like every 30 or 40 years.
Oh right, okay.
And then you could only get into it once. Like you had to wait for the right window of opportunity.
Imagine if you missed that one.
That's for you to get the juice. Like, and if you're initiate, it wasn't for everybody, but it's just for the initiates. And if you really want the juice, then you will be preparing for this. And basically, it prepared the initiates for a more prosperous afterlife experience. And as I said, that's what the ancient Egypt, and that's where it came from. The elusive mysteries come from the open of the mouth ceremony from ancient Egypt. And you go around the world and there's all of these, the adult, initiations, for adults, but it starts when you're a child. Like it actually starts pre-birth. I mean, the real traditions, it starts before you get here. Like they know who you are when you're coming. Like you're coming to do a particular job. We don't just have babies for the sake of having babies. Like we need gardeners. I need warriors. We need. So we invoke that. So they would be using these plant technologies in bringing these spirits through to then get a physical form, then to fulfill particular role on planet Earth.
So they would communicate with the spirit world in that sense to say what's needed, on a smaller scale back then, probably in the sense
and,
now.
And then the mothers will be communicating with the babies in the womb. You're saying, I know you're here. I got you for 9 months, and like we're going to be doing all the right things for you to prepare you. So when you come out, you're good to go. This is, these are the rites of passages. These are the rites of passages that have been removed. And just the powers that be have given us alternatives that are not as as well supported on for real life. It's like designed today. It's designed for you to get up and go and get a job and pay your taxes.
The Matrix.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's quite hard to break out.
But when we needed, not to say that we didn't need tradesmen and we might need an Iron Man. For real. So like we're going to be an Iron Man, but not anybody could be an Iron Man.
No.
We're going to call through an Iron Man, and we're going to call them through the Iron family, the families who have been dealing with iron for millenniums. These guys are the masters of iron. You guys are the masters of water, of boats. So if we need more fishermen, they're going to come through the fisherman family. It's consciously done.
Working that way. How do you feel when, if you ever trip now or anything else, when you when you come across, I mean, I've heard loads of different terminologies for it, like machine elves, I think was what Terence McKenna said. I actually spoke to a guy called Tripwit before. He's an Australian, and he talks about an operation table as well, which lots of people have sort of gone to. Which, have you ever come across that? That sounds mad.
I've had my own experiences, which I won't get into.
Yeah.
I make reference to that because it comes up a lot, especially people who do DMT, like, you done DMT before. I've seen the machine elves that Terence McKenna talks about.
Yeah.
And then I go into, again, well, where does all that come from? Because again, like, let's just say like Terence is new age. I know it's like, but like it's the new wave. I'm into the ancient stuff.
Yeah, of
so
course.
Do the ancients talk about little machine elves? And Oh yeah, they do. Do you know why? Because they are the little machine elves.
Yeah.
Because I talk about the first people on planet Earth in this current cycle. The first humanoids are the so-called pygmy people. And they've been here so long, according to their own mythologies, according to their own stories, their own history, they were here before Earth. And then it gets far-fetched, like they are part of Earth's creation. They're the guys who help facilitate this space. And they're in the physical form, but they're also in a non-physical form. And again, it sounds a bit weird, but if you've believed in a God who you've not seen or heard from and prayed to him and all the rest of it, these people give you a more tangible, because they show you that it's more to do with your ancestral connections, and they tie you into these beings, like literal physical beings, so-called pygmies. And I just saw in your garden, man, you got garden gnomes. Leprechauns and stuff like this is where it all comes from. This is all part of, all right, there you go, Dave. So these guys actually come from real people that existed. Now if you were to go and do a Google now and type out pygmies, you're going to find that the earliest pygmies that we know have come from Central Africa and Southern Africa, and in this current cycle they've populated planet Earth. So every country that you go to, every continent that you're going to go onto, you're going to find, if you do your Googles, the earliest people are these small brown to black, wavy to curly haired people. Like all history talks about it. That's why I go to Cornwall and go to Wales, because they talk about them. They talk about the brownies and these small people who were the first people in these regions. Like history is there, man. It's like actually there. Now they say that they are the first people to take mushrooms, to take iboga, to take DMT, or not just ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is just the traditional name in a particular place. But you find acacia, DMT files, as I like to refer to it, in many plants in many parts of the world. In Egypt, for example, they called it the tree of life, and the scientific term was the Acacia nilotica. It's an acacia bush that grows all along the Nile. So all of the Nile Valley civilization, all of those people were dealing with these technologies, and they talk about this stuff. And in ancient Egypt, we would refer to them as the Natir, or these forces of nature, these gatekeepers who connect our world to the unseen world. So it's there, it's in mythologies and stuff like that. And as I understand, these little machine elves who operate and take care of us and take care of, give us our messages and type of stuff. I was like, that's what the ancient traditions talk about. And I just guess in the here and now, we call them machine elves because that's what Terence McKenna coined them. His experiences.
Yeah. No, it's mad. Do you think they're a different sort of dimensional being then, now? Like if it's in another dimension, because dimensional reality is like something I love. I delve into that a lot.
Because that's what these little people in Africa say. We came from another dimension to come to this dimension, and we three-dimensionalized, and we still got access to that side as and when we want to. But you guys have cut off because you think we're
just in here.
You're now top of the pyramids, and run the world. So like, if you was to get back into that stuff, you would be able to access these multi-dimensions, multiverses that we originally came from, and we've been passing through and still continue to pass through. If you speak, like I say this like lightly, but it's like real deal stuff, man. If people have heard of the Zulus, like this is what they talk about, man. Like these ancient tribes, they really say, like the Zulus say that, we was hanging on Mars before we came to Earth. Like we know about, traveling from interplanetary and interdimensional traveling, and they talk about their spaceships, their crafts, not metal crafts, like crafts made from light and energy and things like this. And later on in, like, if you get into, the esoteric practices, people call like the Merkaba, where you can turn yourself into a spaceship into
it's like triangles all over the gap.
Like you are the crystal.
In a very bad way of explaining it, but
like you are the crystal technology, and that technology is in your blood. That's where the crystals are, in the blood. Like, it's like, and that's the same crystals that makes the iPhone work, and
the silicon chip as well, and things like that.
And these ancient traditions have basically just got the organic versions of them locked down. They got it locked, like on lock, and we've got these synthetic versions on lock now. You give a phone to a 13-year-old, and they can change the world,
of course,
with it. But like, it's the same technology that these rites of passage or these secret societies of old, or these groups were dealing with to do what they do.
So do you feel that we might be going back into a world where we might have a better connection later on, or do you feel it's getting more separate as what you're doing? Obviously what you're doing is trying to educate through food as well as this world as well. Obviously not the school classes, but obviously the other ones in a sense. Do you feel from your work that you've been doing that we are going in a better direction now?
I don't know. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
To class it as everyone is quite
like
tricky.
For sure. Like, to be for sure, this is how I look at it. This is how I was taught, and how it's like, it's the pendulum, man. So the pendulum swings from side to side. So as blissful as we're gonna get, and great things may be, it's got to swing round. And it's gonna be as hellish, and that's just the way it goes. Like we just said, in the yang is a bit of yin, in the yin is the yang. So like, is it getting better? Am I trying to make it better? Like, no, I'm just being, man. I'm just doing. And like, I get that there's some people that don't do what I do, and they do the polar opposite. And I guess what they do is like fit for purpose as well. Like, it's not I'm trying to be good and I want to make the world a better place. Like, I used to think like that, like younger, but it's like, nah, I just think like, those I speak, and those who it resonates, like, just like I had people who spoke to me and it resonated. And there was a point in time, the people who resonated with me were saying, let's go break into cars, and it resonated. That was the thing. That was the thing to do.
I did that.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are saying, they're saying, yo, like, eat better. Like, that resonates.
While driving.
And at that time, none of them, like, now the perspective, especially with Mush, the technologies that we're working, like, give me like, it's not about good and bad, and like, it just is. And the forces, like the true organic God, just say God for lack of a better title or description, needs to experience it all. The good, the bad, and the beautiful, ugly. So are we heading in the better places? Like, no, we need all of it, and all of it.
Otherwise it doesn't all work together. I did hear a good saying, I don't know if you know a guy called Daniel Arkin, his name's Bashar, he goes by, which means messenger. But he channels another being of frequency and talks, and his talks are just wild. It's not really like a lecture, it's more like 5 hours, anyone can ask a question.
Got you.
And he just fires back all the time, and it's like, if he was a con artist, then he could just be a really clever guy without doing all that. So I just look at it's the information that's important.
Got you.
But he says that the reality is fake here, but the experience is real. And I was like, whoa.
I get that.
Mad. So the final question I always ask everyone is what this series is about, what reality is. So I always ask everyone, what is reality to you?
Kind of just on like, everything is real. Like, everything is my reality. Like, in that regards, like, although I now know I live in this illusion where my senses tell me everything is real and hard, and I know better now, I've been educated, but this is still my reality. This is and it's real. Although I know that the so-called unseen world that people would say is unreal, not real, is probably more realer to me than it's ever been. So I find a balance between, the unseen world and this physical world, and everything in between is real. There's nothing that I experience that isn't
real.
That's the premise that I come from now. So back in the days, people say, your dreams are not real, they're just dreams. And I'd never bought, as I said, I didn't buy that from a 5-6-year-old. I was like, nah, my dreams are real.
They tell me before that alarm goes off.
That's real. You don't get realer than that. There's no human being that's ever given me that kind of insight, like, to that degree. So for me, I've grown with not being sure, like, what's real, what isn't, but like, everything is real. Everything is real. And even the illusion, even, like, plastic is real, it's real. Like, all synthetic stuff that is man-made is real, down to the things that we can't really put our finger on and get our head around is also real. It's like, it's all real.
The other question, I said final question, but the other question is that what do you feel, as we were talking about psychedelics earlier, you said that nothing can prepare you for that, all the astral projection or meditation. What do you feel is more realistic, or I wouldn't say intense, because you would say probably psychedelics, but what would you say is more a real reality when you're in it, in this physical realm, or when you're in a trip state? what feels more like to what is actually a place, or they're both the same?
Yeah,
it's a tricky question.
Yeah, it is, but I'll answer it this way. Like, so prior to the experience, I can't wait to get onto that side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, fucking, it's real. You know, it's like, it's real, you know?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm on that side, just because even sometimes I'm on that side, and I can't wait to get back to the real world, which is this world.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I've used those terms, like, bro, you're just a walking contradiction, Darren. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you're saying,
either here or there.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's what I'm saying. These, the practices and the teachings that I'm picking up, like, they've shown me that it's metaphysical. Like, we don't need to try to separate it.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
This is this, and it's like, no, like, this is part of that, and that is part of this. You know, if you get into quantum physics and all that type, that's what they talk about. Well, when the atoms disappear from here, where do they go to? They go to this other place, like, where we would say that's not real. You know, this other place, but I guess it is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, like, so yeah, this is the paradox. You know, the walking contradictions. Yeah, that we experience. So for me, yeah, very much side, I'm on there, and it's very much real, and I'm on the other side sometimes, and it's very much unreal. It's unbelievable. It's uncomparable to anything I've ever experienced on here, and I can't pull it back. I can't pull that back here to even try to start to describe what this realness or unrealness is like, because it's like beyond this here. But there's certain things here on earth that I experience that you can't explain. Like, can you explain to someone an orgasm?
No.
You know, how that's something you need to experience. So it's like, so
even the body itself, I mean, you know, your nails are growing, your hair's growing, you know, your eyes blink without you knowing, you're breathing. You only know you're in the body when something's wrong with it.
For real.
So it's true. Do you have anything you want to shout out? Any projects you're doing lately or coming out soon?
Yeah, for sure. Good timing, man. So I've just this week, because I don't know when this comes out, but this week at least, I'll launch my new webinar series.
Yeah.
Not even new, their first brand new webinar series. I've had a few, you know, online things because of the pandemic and stuff that like spurred a lot of that on. But I've got a series that I've put together called Psychedelics in Africa, The Untold Story.
Yeah, I saw that today. Just to say as well, it's a wicked edit video. It looks dope, man. I love it.
Cool people around me now, man. Like, believe. You know what I'm saying? So like, let's do some cool stuff together.
Yeah, sick.
So, but that all came from my very first presentation that I put together, and it wasn't even a presentation. It was just the research that I was doing. I was just doing my own research for my own benefit. I shared some of that with Kalindi, and I also shared it with one of the organizers at Breaking Convention, who was saying, we need more people out there doing some presentation stuff. Like, I don't know, Kalindi's the only guy I know doing this stuff. So like, let's just get him over more and more and more. And eventually she coaxed me into, and so did Kalindi, to say, you should just like bring some of your research, put it together, put some slides together and present it. And that was the first thing I ever done in 2013. I done that at Breaking Convention, and that was like a half an hour presentation that I done, and that was 2011. We're now in 2022, I believe. So I'm being told all these years later, I've now developed that, and there's like 8 hours worth of content. Basically, there's like 8 hours worth of content I've put together. It's not just me talking and saying my piece, although that is a big part of it. But there's, you know, like visual slides, animation that's going to be going with it. There's like resources that be provided, like articles, all the things that I'm referencing, the articles, reading lists, just everything you would need to get your starter pack for looking at psychedelics in Africa. And I say that to say that that is the focus, that is the heart, because that's the center where, you know, anybody knows about permaculture, that's like zone zero. And as we zone out and we get into other places, spaces, you see that it's connected to other stories, other legacies, other mythologies. So being born and bred here in the UK, I'll bring it right back here and take you back to Africa and all around. So it's like world history. Like somebody said to me yesterday, it's like, well, it is suggested that we all come from Africa. That's what some people have heard. Well, then it's the world history that I'm talking about. It's the world story, like, and let's not just restrict it to that, you know, that landmass of the continent that we call Africa. Because just like I shared at that presentation, the first people that we know from that continent are actually a global people. They're not actually just restricted to the continent of Africa.
Yeah, of course.
So I'll show you that these people are the same people that are in Cornwall, the same people that I went to Mexico to go find out about, the same people that you find in different parts in the world. Like, the records, if you dive a bit deeper, suggest that it's the same people.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's what I'll go into. So outside of just psychedelics, it's like, just world history, man. So you could come to my website, darrenlebaron.com. It's also like that. It's being housed on Vimeo. So like, if you just do a Google search.
We'll put all the links below anyway. Everything
there's
there.
Different ways of accessing it, but either or, there's not like much other than that I'm doing outside of clothing and stuff. People can check out the website and feel out what in-person events that I do. I'm here in the UK for a few more months, so I'm about to do this stuff around the country, but again, by the time this comes out, I might be somewhere else, so who knows. But
it should be soon anyway. It should be sort of November, December time.
The best way is just to get on the website, man. See where I'm at and what I'm doing.
Have you got any more shroom shops? Have you got one coming up? Or?
I do those regular. Like when I'm in the UK, those are like at least once a month, pretty much twice a month in London at least. And I'm going to be doing one a week. You know, I'm doing one in London. I've got one in Bristol coming up, one in Brighton coming up, one in Manchester coming up. It's just like wherever I am.
Busy, yo.
That's what I do. Busy but good. It's not work. It's like...
Exactly.
Yeah, it's what I love doing, my man. Like, to this day, I feel indebted to the mushrooms for allowing me to be an ambassador for them and do what I now am passionate about and love doing. And it's like light work and not light work. It's light work, man.
New age.
I roll light. It's easy. It doesn't seem like work.
And,
you know, I think I was taught by the best from my actual teachers who taught me, you know, have educated me on this realm and the other realm and through the mushrooms, and then them students who I was working with, man, who prepared me to be like a good teacher, you know, because I had to find engaging ways of teaching these kids who didn't want to learn what I was, you know, there to share.
Put to do,
Now I'm in rooms where people are like, I'm actually coming to learn this stuff, man. So it's like, it's like it's an easier audience and people, you know, students, so to speak, to work with. So, all of those means and ways of getting access, you know, through the website, through the YouTube channels and the Instagrams, and you'll find out.
And you got Patreon as well, right?
Oh, man. I'm getting there slowly but surely. Like, I'm gonna put it on the t-shirt. Just the ways.
Well, it's a lot now. If you're, you know, we're all one being in a sense, and it's like now you've got probably 8 different places you can go on the internet in a sense of platform here. So I always forget what I've got to say. It's one link. There you go.
Linktree as well.
Linktree. There you go.
Something like that.
Well, thanks so much for your time today, and it's been an education. And I think what you're doing is amazing. It's great, and to express it to the younger generation as well, and especially kids that need help in that avenue that the school system definitely hasn't helped or haven't been able to educate in certain ways. I think it's great.
I really
thanks.
Man.
Sorry about the flyers as well.
Cool, man. You know, wear the shit. But with that said, I appreciate you being consistent, reaching out, and you know, making sure it happens. And I see what you're doing, man. So I was thinking, for me, it's like I always talk about the usual suspects. Like we're seeing the same people doing the same stuff over and over again. So when I saw your stuff, I was like, it's different, isn't it? Like like that in itself was interested enough for me to be like, let's collaborate and make it happen. So just keep doing it, man.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Nice one, man.
Sweet.